All right, so we're here with David Harnack, our head deacon for the Wadena SDA Church.
Hello.
Hey, David, how long have you been head deacon with the Wadena Church?
Off and on, head deacon. I've been with the Wadena Church probably a total of 10 years, off and on, at given times when I've been elected to do it.
And how big of a church is Wadena?
Big of a church. The church right now has a membership of about 50 people right now.
Okay.
So it's a small church.
What has been for you the most rewarding part of being head deacon?
The most rewarding part for me is making sure that the church is functional and ready for the congregation to come on Saturdays, and to have make sure that everything that is needed to run the service works well. So I guess the biggest thing for me is the satisfaction of knowing that we can worship here on Saturdays and have fellowship.
What goes into that, being here in northern Minnesota in a smaller church? What are some of those duties that help the church be ready on a Sabbath, and how do you get those accomplished? Maybe hand off responsibilities, divvy them up. How does that work for you?
Well, we have a group of deacons, and at any given time, we split up the job as far as deacon over the Saturdays. There's different deacons that actually do the job. We also function in the foot washing and what do they call that?
Communion?
Communion. Sorry about that. We also help with communion. We take care of the grounds as well as the buildings. If we need something done, we actually contact outside contacts if we need to have them do something. We also make sure the church is clean, make sure that the janitors are doing their job, assist the elders if they need it, when and if they need it, and go out and visit the sick, and basically anything with the function of the church that goes on in the background, we have our hands on it one way or another.
Okay.
So
has there been challenges that have been more difficult for you, and if so, how have you dealt with them?
Well, over the last year, the biggest thing is COVID. That was the biggest thing, and actually trying to go through the period of waiting for the church to open. And when we did, we had to go through all of the CDC's requirements to get it open, as well as meet the requirements of the Seventh-day Adventist Conference. So it was a big challenge to actually bring the church back to life once COVID hit. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle we've ever had. I mean, we've had work bees and everything else, but so far as the church is going, with COVID still out there, we're able to work and function as a church family. So,
what has been the impact on the church family as you've been going through it, and how do you see your role as deacon impacting the cohesiveness of the church through this past year and a half or so?
Well, the thing of it is the deacon, the head deacon, as well as the deacons, have to be functional in both directions. They have to be courteous to the people and to their needs, as well as take care of whatever they deem as necessary to keep the church open. And basically with the church and the guidance of God, the cohesiveness is making sure that everybody gets along. That's the biggest thing right there.
Yeah. So at times, smaller churches have challenges of getting along.
But sometimes, yeah, there's in any congregation there's people that are a little headstrong or a little apprehensive, and we have to iron all that out, or try to anyway, and make a effort to reach out to everybody and find common ground to work on, because the church is made up of a body of people. And if something in the body isn't working right, we have to actually figure out what's going on and try and get to the bottom of it and find a solution.
Is there one individual that's in charge of making sure that the church all functions properly, that has to have their finger, so to speak, on every issue?
I would say probably two people. One is the minister. He basically is overseeing the church, but the one that really should have his pulse on everything is the head elder and his elders. And from there, because they do most of the evangelism, it's handed down to the deacons to actually help them sort out what's going on in the church.
So be aware of them, while at the same time not trying to take care of all the problems themselves. So it's a division of labor, so to speak.
Right, and that's what it was set up in the Bible for. It was so that the deacons would be freed up to do more of the work in the church as far as evangelism and preaching. The deacons were actually to take charge of the day-to-day activities and work with the people and congregation to make sure that everything was going smoothly in the background.
Okay. So it's like carrying the nutrients to the body and allowing the church to function properly. So if, for example, if there's problems with electrical or plumbing and such, that detracts from the ability of the church to function.
Right, and we rely on one is the janitors, and they come through and they clean the church once a week, and they get their hands on just about anything that's functioning in the church. So they let us know if there's something going on so we can fix it in a timely manner. If it's something large, we try to get the service done so that the church is ready and up and running by Saturday. If not, we notify the appropriate people, and then they decide which they want to do. As far as, well, for example, when we had COVID, when we first started meeting, we were actually meeting out under the trees, and it was very nice. It had a nice breeze, we had shade, and that church was easy to take care of. When we moved back in here, then it got a little more complicated, but it doesn't matter with God's house. As long as we take care of it and we show good faith, He'll bless us.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about the property itself, having it prepared for worship, and so I appreciate that. The other thing you mentioned, there's visitation with church members. How has that? How have you done that, and what's the impact that you've seen?
Well, the impact that I've seen so far, I've what I do is at the end of service, I go out and look at the visitors log of the people that come in, and a lot of times I will go to work and reach out to them and find out if they enjoyed the service, and invite them back. Matter of fact, we have one family that's been coming back to church. It's a Spanish family, or Hispanic family, and I reached out to them, and I would like to think that just keeping in contact with family, the church family, and the newcomers that are coming in, I would like to think that they're making them more welcome and freely want to come.
So it creates an atmosphere of warmth.
Yes, and caring, yeah.
Yeah. Um, in regards to preparing for baptismal service, what does a deacon need to be aware of? What are the
Well,
steps to prepare for that?
well, when it comes to baptism, we're notified by either the pastor or the elders that there's going to be a baptism. That sets in motion all the things that come under the baptism. It's making sure the baptistry is good to go, making sure the heater is working, making sure the water is warm, working with the head deaconess to make sure that all the rooms that they need for baptisms are set up, and the gowns, along with the head deaconess, that the gowns are ready. And then when the service starts, we also function as well as helping with the people into the baptistry and out, as well as making sure that they safely get down stairways. And then we also do the cleanup after the baptism.
Okay. How much water, or maybe a rule of thumb, how deep do you want the water in the baptistry?
Rule of thumb is you want it roughly about chest level on a 6-foot person.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah, but depending on the size of people that you have, then you have to judge from the smallest person to the tallest person, and the average then is probably about 5 feet.
Okay.
What we do, should I say that? What we do for little children or short people, we actually use a step down in the baptistry to actually get them up so people can see them, as well as they're out of the water a ways.
Okay. Maybe the chest height on a 6-foot person might be a little bit deep.
Yeah, but most
waist height.
Yeah,
or slightly higher.
Yeah, that's true.
Because we have some short people would not have been able to
be baptized. Well, they would have been baptized before they even started. Huh.
Yeah, but the baptistry kind of tells you how deep it is to be. Certainly, you want it higher than 2 feet, which is good.
Yeah.
As far as preparing for the communion, especially in a cold winter, what are some preparations that some people might not be aware of in southern climates?
Well, in cold weather conditions, that starts late October, goes all the way into March or April. We have to deal with cold weather. We have to deal with snow that comes that has to be removed prior to Sabbath service. We try to have that done on a Friday morning or Friday afternoon if it's snowing, and so that we have it cleared for service on Saturday. As far as communion, the inside the church, as far as communion, that doesn't change much. It's pretty much the same as far as getting the bread plates and the drink plates ready and up to the sanctuary Friday night, so they're ready to go Saturday. And then they go through the service, the foot washing, and then we come back up and have the communion service, and the deacons assist with that, with the elders helping the pastor. And then from there, once that's done, once the church service is done, then the deacons and the head deaconess have to clean up the church and get it ready and get everything put away and cleaned.
It's a lot of things in the background taking place with the deacons.
Right. So the deacons are a very essential part, and you have to make sure that the deacons all buy into it as far as wanting to help and wanting to be a deacon. So the more that you delegate work to them and let them do the work and you oversee them, the more they feel like they're needed or wanted. So it isn't just the head deacon doing the job, it's actually getting the other ones to actually help also.
So as you coordinate that, are there anything that you have done to encourage those that you're working with that you have found helpful to have the buy-in, so to speak?
When we first took over when I first took over as head elder this time, I always have a meeting with the deacons, and the deacons, we sit down and talk about what our plans are and what we need to do, and then we go over roughly, if there's new ones, we go over roughly each service that needs to be done. So they have a rough idea, and we never put one deacon with another younger deacon that doesn't quite understand the service. We try to put him with an older deacon as well as a younger deacon, so he can learn from the older deacon how to do the job, so that when and if it becomes time for him to become a head deacon, he has an understanding of the working of the deacon process.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're constantly training replacements.
Correctly, yeah, because we do an election every 2 years, and the thing of it is the deacons a lot of times are never the same deacons. Some of them come back, and some of them don't, and that's fine, because once they're ordained in the church, they're still a deacon.
Mm-hmm.
So you can still rely on them for service. It's just that they may not be elected to the deacon office
During that term cycle. Right. Okay. You mentioned visiting the sick and the poor, helping out anybody that's going through an unfortunate situation. How do you find out about it? And how do you then proceed forward in assisting, helping, or helping the church body to meet the needs?
Well, a lot of times that's done by either in church, we found out about it in the announcements, or via email or Facebook. A lot of members use their phone mostly for texting. If it's somebody that we have a number for, we will reach out to them. Depending on the situation and what it is, we will also get the deaconesses involved as far as providing meals, getting people to deliver the meals, or getting drivers to make sure that drivers are capable of taking people where they need to go. We have some retired members that were deacons, and they're willing to do that. As far as the situation, whether it be a storm or tornado or whatever, we rely on the people of the disaster unit to tell us what they need, and then we begin to function after that. So it's just a matter of knowing what type of situation it is, and then how to respond it accordingly.
Can you share a couple of stories of interventions that or help that you as a head deacon or have been able to assist with folks locally?
The biggest one that we had was when the tornadoes went through the Wadena area here, and it basically devastated half of Wadena. And we actually had a outreach program down in the city where we were able to get donations, and they came in from all over the states. We actually got in water, food, blankets, tarps, and we put the word out that anybody that needed that could come to us and get it. We also went out into the neighborhood to find out if we could actually assist any of the people as far as getting brush off their lawns, or because the city would come through and pick it up, just basically helping them clean up because it was a major disaster that went through here.
Did it impact your house?
It didn't impact my house, but I was, the first day that the storm hit, I was actually in town from 9 o'clock to midnight, cutting logs off of roads.
Oh boy.
So
that'll keep you busy.
yeah, what was strange about that is I worked for a company here in town, and for some unknown reason I had my log truck as well as all my saws with me that day. And when the storm hit, at first I went over to the site where they were dispersing people, and finally they said just go over and start opening up a street. Well, by the time I got done opening up streets, everybody else had went home. I shut my saws off and it was really quiet. So I must have been the only one left. But yeah, it was kind of, I don't know if it was a premonition or why I needed the saws and the truck and the hydraulics all there, but I had it all there sitting in the parking lot that day.
So how often would you bring your truck and your equipment to Wadena?
Not very often. The reason I actually brought it is because I was actually going to go over to another place because I burn firewood. So I actually went over to another place. I was going to a place to actually log off some logs over there. And that was just one of the days that I had it there and the storm actually hit. I actually worked in the city with the skid steers and the trucks and the saws more than 3 days, just cutting trees, just cutting them up and moving them. That's how bad it was.
For some reason, huh?
For some reason, yeah.
I think there wasn't for some reason. I think there was some divine intervention there.
Yeah.
That you came prepared. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, to have everything on the truck, fuel, oil, chainsaws, extra bars, extra chains. Normally I don't carry that heavy of a load as far as equipment, but yeah, that day I did.
The work that you do as a head deacon, some people might not see it as really that spiritual.
That's possible, but it's still work that has to be done. I would prefer to see myself in the back light, not in front of the front light, as far as getting all the glory. I would rather see that the church is ready and welcome for people that want to come to service.
That is deeply spiritual. It is. The Bible talks about things, parts of the body that are visible and others that are covered, and in a sense you're covered, but you're meeting a need that without you, maybe somebody else would pick up the slack, but you do it with your heart. And yeah. I think that's probably the biggest requirement to have a good deacon, to have somebody with heart, loves God, doesn't need the accolades, but is just looking for meaningful interaction with the church body and knowing that you're making a difference.
Right. Yeah, I don't expect, what do you call it, glory?
Yeah.
No, I'm not one of them people. I would rather be in the background. I guess my traits, or my gifts, I guess you'd call it, is keeping things running. Now, that's what I've done all my life, and that's what I'm doing here as a head deacon.
So you're retired.
Yep.
Do you still work where you're retired from?
Yeah. How many people do you know have a time card and still retired? I still go in now and then. They still call me when they have major computer breakdowns, hydraulics, pneumatics. I have certificates to work on all that stuff. But like I told them at work, how do you pass down your knowledge that you have? How do you pass it on in 3 months or a year that took you a lifetime to accumulate?
It's not possible.
No, so again, yeah, I'm retired, but they retained me on call.
So the knowledge that you got there, most of it doesn't apply here, but the work ethic and the joy of seeing things go from not functioning to working smoothly,
Right.
carries forward.
And the thing of it is, it doesn't have to be a machine like exactly this church. You want it to function smoothly, so you're right. You approach it with the idea that it's a problem-solving situation. There's days when there is no problems, but then there's days when there is problems and we have to solve them, so.
Biggest joy for you then in the work that you do as a head deacon, what would you say that is? What's been the biggest joy?
I think the biggest joy is actually seeing people being won over to the Lord. When we're able to fill the baptistry, when we actually hold a seminar and we get people in from the countryside to come in to take in the meetings. But the biggest joy I have is knowing that the church is open and ready and welcoming to anybody that wants to come.
Here in the past 2 years, we've been, I would say, growing. More and more people have been coming to see us. Some are from as far away as an hour and a half?
Last week we actually had some people come all the way from Sartell. There was a couple that came from actually Dakotas that were here. They were just visiting. They were visiting family here, but it was still nice to see them come and that the church is actually open. I know there's churches still today that are not open under some form of service that isn't a full service, where we do the full service. And I think that also wants people to come back because it's a fellowship. They're coming for the fellowship as well as the word, to join with other believers. So, yeah, at any given time, we don't have visitors every week, but a lot of them that come because they want to.
What's the most interesting visitor you've heard of coming to the church?
The most interesting one?
Yeah.
Lately?
Yeah.
Well, I would have to say it's the Hispanic family from up by, I think they're from around Detroit Lakes. I can't speak their language, and they speak sort of English, but yet more Spanish. So I think it's cool that they're actually coming here.
All right. And the environment, we have two environments. We have the physical environment of the building, which you have a hand in helping to foster a good environment in that sense. But then there's the other environment, that's how people interact with each other. And there's been a lot of kindness, even in the midst, we do have challenges that we meet, but there's a warmth in this church. I think you and your wife and other leadership in the church here are part of making a welcoming environment, and that's one reason I believe that the church is experiencing a growth.
I would like to believe that. I would like to, but like again, we work in the background. But our attitude is there is nobody that you can hate. I mean, you're supposed to love thy neighbor, and treat your enemy kindly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have little hiccups now and then, but it's nothing that can't be talked about and ironed out. Sometimes we have little misunderstandings, but overall, I would say the fellowship is very strong, and the people that go out and do the work as far as evangelism, we're doing a very good job of that. So realistically, as a whole, is the body of the church is working well together? Yes.
Good. Any parting thoughts as anybody that's coming into a deacon role? What would you recommend for them to thrive in the role as a deacon?
Well, if they're going to, they get appointed by committee to be the deacons of the church. But I guess the biggest thing I can say to all of that would be to anybody that becomes a deacon to pick a person that they admire and look up to as far as being a deacon, and glean everything you can from him. Because if he's looked up to and treated with respect, 9 times out of 10, he's a person that you would like to learn as much as you can from. So.
And the other side of that is what would be maybe a pitfall to avoid?
Pitfall to avoid is don't let the job go to your head as far as authority. You only have as much authority as they're allowed as far as doing the deacon job. So you have to be humble, like you said, and be conscious of other people and their needs. And the deacon, all they're really there for is to supply a need. That's all they're for, so.
So don't let it go to your head.
No, it's a title. It's a nice title, but it's nothing to be go out there and beat your chest and say that I'm the head deacon. No.
I think that's probably good advice for anybody in any position in the church. So, well, David, I appreciate you sharing some words of wisdom. I hope that anyone that has had the opportunity to watch this will also glean some things that they can take with them and help them to be good deacons.
Well, thank you for coming and seeing me.
All right.